Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay? My name is Nick Gardner. I'm from Potomac State College Library, one of the librarians there. Also in the chat is Virginia Stevens, another one of our librarians. If you have questions during this session, feel free to type them in the chat or unmute yourself and ask. This is very informal. Jenny, did you want to say hi too?
Hi, everyone. Welcome. It looks like we have some people from all over, Nick.
It does. Do people want to go around and introduce themselves?
That would be great. Cindy Hall, where are you from?
I am from Fremont, Nebraska.
Wow, how did you hear about this, on Facebook?
Yes. Yep, I'm a member of the Mineral County West Virginia Facebook page. So
awesome, welcome.
Thank you.
Steve, how about you?
This Steve is, am I muted? No, we're good. North River Mills, our county seat is Romney, and we're close to the state line.
Welcome. Have you used the site before? How did you hear about it?
I know I toyed with it a little bit. Danny Oates is really singing your all's praise. He's our Hampshire County historian.
Yes, we have his book.
Hanging Rock Rebel.
Yes.
Right.
No, it's good.
Steve?
I'm Christy Venom, and I'm from Morgantown.
Mm-hmm. Okay, David?
And I'm David Kirkendall. I'm from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania.
Great. Debbie?
I'm Debbie Pistolsky. I'm from Cumberland, Maryland.
Wonderful. Terry? That's okay if you don't want to talk. We'll just move on to Carol. Okay. And we also have Madeline Jakowski, who's one of our library staff here as well. We're going to go ahead and just start to roll into this. Let's see, there's a message in the chat real quick. Oh, okay. All right. So to access our site, one thing I really want to emphasize, I know that when I do these sessions, we talk about it, is for people to realize this really is free. All the content that's there is completely accessible to you. There's no catch to this. So I just want to reiterate that. A lot of times people think, how could this all be free? And a lot of times when you go on genealogy sites, you only get so much. Well, everything we have that we can make available to you, it's there, it's accessible. All right, so if you're trying to get to the site, you want to start by going to the Potomac State College homepage. So if you just type Potomac State College Library into Google, that first result that comes up is always the right one. You just click on that, and when you land on this page, and just so you all know, if you have questions during these next few months, even though we're not physically in the building right now, we are accessible to answer any questions you may have. You can call us and leave a message, and we'll call you back, or you can email us. So we do have this information right here in case you have any questions from this session today. Now, there are 4 links to make it easier, because it's so easy to like miss the page that you were basically on our site. There's a link right here that'll take you straight to it. And additionally, there's a link here, a link here, and a link here. So if you miss one, just click one of the other ones. It's okay. We try to make this as foolproof as possible. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and click this. This takes you to a research guide we put together to basically give you some additional information on newspapers throughout West Virginia, not just what's on our portal. Our portal only has newspapers right now representing 4 counties in West Virginia. That's Mineral, Hampshire, Hardy, and Grant County. We're hoping to expand that in the future to additional newspapers. When you scroll down here, we have a master list of newspaper titles that are available electronically that are my student workers put together in January. I'll be editing this weekend so that all these tabs are on one thing you can easily scroll through. but it shows what's on Chronicling America that was put up by the West Virginia Regional and History Center, as well as some smaller initiatives like what's on Newspaper Archive and small town papers. So it's a really convenient place to go if you want to find other papers that aren't on our site. For example, we had one person yesterday who was looking for Ohio County newspapers. I've also tried to link out to other pages that collect this information up as well. Okay. Oh, just as a shout out, this project has been funded primarily by community donations. So just want to recognize these people and also the cooperation of the newspapers and the local libraries who have lent parts of their collection for this. We couldn't have done this if we had to only use our collection. Now, just so you know, if there's anything you want to go back over from today's session, there are tutorials available here on the site. You can just hover over the drop down and pick any of them. There are videos set up there. And additionally, this tab here shows what workshops we have coming up, and additionally where we've given workshops in the past. So when this is all over, if you have a local genealogy, history, or church group and you'd like us to come and do a workshop for you, you can actually reach out to us. We'd be happy to schedule that when things are back to normal. Okay.
No, Nick, you are not traveling to Nebraska when the library's dime.
Well, no, that's not what I mean, like local to West Virginia.
I'm just teasing you.
Yeah. All
I've been
right.
for you to go to Nebraska. You're that valuable.
Yeah. So if you basically, when you're back here on the main page, it's this click here to access the West Virginia newspapers portal. That's where you want to go. All right. So give me a second, just need to adjust a little bit. All right. Something that always, so when you're on this page, we're going to be diving more into the advanced search soon. But this is your basic search right here. The option to pick dates. And additionally, if you scroll down here, you'll see that you can see all the titles that we have, as well as the years that are covered. Now, something that throws users quite a bit, down here, depending on your computer screen, this more button sometimes may be like, you know, this whole section right here may be spread out quite a bit further down, and the more can be kind of hard to see. But when you pick here, you can see all the titles we have. Again, it's from Mineral, Hampshire, Hardy, and Grant County. We just added through 1940 or 42 of the Hampshire Review, the Grant County Press, and the Moorfield Examiner with the permission of those papers. Even though those are technically in copyright, the paper gave permission that it could be available online. We also just added the West Virginia Advocate, which was a recent paper from 1982 to 1992. And anyone who's from this area knows the Advocate had a lot of wonderful genealogy information in it. So it's a great resource if you're trying to find out history for this area. All right. And we worked that out because one of our staff members knew the publishers, was able to secure permission. So, all right. So when you want to do a basic search, you can just simply type it in here. One of the things I want you to see, your options that you have right away from the basic search thing, is you can search all of the words. So that means your results have to have all the words you put in. The exact phrase, that means, for example, if I put Potomac State School, that's an older name for Potomac State College, it would search specifically for that phrase. I wouldn't have to put it in quotes. That's another thing that you can do as well. Any of the words, that means it could have, if I type Potomac State College, it will bring up articles that could have Potomac State or college in the results, or none of the words. Now, none of the words is handy when you can add on here. In the advanced search, you can add on and add more rows. So it's handy if you want to filter out example or certain things. You also have the ability to search in specific date ranges. And when we go to the advanced search page, I'll show you how the date stuff works there. All right, so let's do a simple search. We'll look for the Twin Mountain and Potomac Railroad. Now, I left that ampersand out because, frankly, all of this stuff was scanned from older microfilm reels, and funky symbols like the ampersand don't always translate right. They don't always get picked up. A great example you can see here, even a recent article like 2005, if I put the ampersand in and I'd put, say, TMMP, that's a common abbreviation for the Twin Mountain and Potomac, this would have actually gotten completely missed. because when we actually go to the article, you can see that there was an ampersand right there. So it's something you need to be conscientious of. All right, I'm going to go back real quick to the search results page just so you can see. Now, it lets you know how many results you turned up. In this case, for this search, I've got almost 4,000 results. It shows you on the left what titles it found results in. So that's convenient if, say, okay, I noticed that I only have stuff, I have some stuff in the Pasquino. Maybe I only want to see things that were in the Potomac State Student Newspaper. Maybe I want to see things if, for example, if I saw the Elk Garden News over here, which you wouldn't for this query because that paper is a little bit older, you know, just so you can narrow it in from there. So it's very handy. You also have the ability to click your years and decades over here. That's convenient because it'll constrain the results to only being inside those decades or inside that specific year. It's a little bit easier to click right there than it is to use the drop downs. So you can see it'll give you all the results that it can find, and you get a couple different pages of it. Now, one thing I want you to see, and this is something that I'll demonstrate twice, it's a little bit tricky, is the date, refining by date. So when you click on your first date, you get your first drop-down box right here is for your decade. Your second one is for your year. So I'm going to go ahead and set for 1900. And you'll notice it immediately puts it at January 1st, 1900. And what it also does is it puts it at the last day of that decade as well on the second date over here. So really pay attention to that, because you may be thinking, hey, I'm going to constrain this so that I'm not looking at really, really old papers and I'm going to look all the way to the present. You will have to go and adjust the date to what you want. So in our case, I'd like to look for articles that were published in the papers on the Twin Mountain Potomac between 1900 and 1920. So I'll go in here and I'll change the decade to 1920. I'm going to go ahead and move it up from 1929 to 1920. Make sure that December 31st is there. I make sure that this is all set nice and neat, and I'll hit apply. And then I'll click refine search. And immediately you'll notice the number of results is much smaller. It's about 689 articles. Of course, that article from 2005 I just showed you all is no longer there because it wasn't published in this time frame. And this is actually a great article to bring up right here. Now, again, like I mentioned, OCR is not always perfect, and we'll get into some issues with that. And scanning from these old reels is not always perfect. When you look here on the left, you can see there's quite a bit of shadow. And anyone who's ever worked with microfilm knows that when you have papers that are older that have been scanned, they're just not always in the best shape. But again, this is so much better to be able to search this way than have to go image by image by image on a reel, or to switch between reels. So we can search, 100+ years in one place at once. So actually, the reason I like to highlight this article is it's Twin Mountain and Potomac Railroad run first passenger train over road today. And so it's nice because you can see a great example of where you have to be careful. If this article were smaller and it was just this little paragraph right here, one thing you'll notice is that mountain is hyphenated. So it would have gotten completely cut off and not shown up in the search. So that's something that if you feel like when you're going and doing your results, we'll get into some different strategies that you can take with that. I'm going to take some time actually and go over what it's like to actually navigate on a page. So you have the ability to scroll down, see the entire article. It's very handy. These arrows that are here on the left and right are so that you can advance forward and back in a page. These arrows up here do the exact same thing, and you also have the ability to pick from a drop down. Now, some of our papers have like 20+ pages in an issue, so that's when the drop down's handier. Some people like actually going through and like reading it page by page, so like you would on the actual paper. This button right here will take you back to your search results page. This one is really handy if you want to get a clean screenshot that doesn't have this highlighting in here. That's a question I get most frequently is, how do I get rid of the highlighting? So if you click on that and you just go and uncheck highlight all, it removes the highlighting most of the time. If you run into a sticky situation like that, email me. There's a couple different things you can try. But as you can see, it got rid of most of the highlights here in this result. So if I wanted to save this article right here on the Twin Mountain Potomac, I would use this crop tool right here. What's nice about this is that now you can drag this box right over, is that if you were using the snipping tool or print screen or something like that, that's built into your computer, you'd only be able to catch what you can see right here. Whereas this lets you actually go and drag it across the entire image and crop out the entire article. So I can scroll down. And again, as you can see, sometimes the older film, it doesn't look the best. But you'd run into the same issue if you were looking on the actual reels as well. And I just keep going down. And I'm gonna hit, now the next thing, once you've got your area selected, don't hit this X because that'll back everything out and ruin all our hard work. You wanna hit this arrow right here. Now you have a couple options. You can actually fill in information right here. And what's nice is it saves those notes with that page, and it makes it helpful for other researchers. Of course, at this point, we have more than 600,000 pages of information. And, I wouldn't demand or expect, people to actually go in and fill all this stuff out. But it is a really handy way because it will help turn up your article again sooner if you put a useful note right there. All right, so you can actually click download clipped image right here, and it will download this file as an image. Sometimes people prefer that. Now, one thing I do want to point out, newspapers prior to 1925 are in the public domain. So if you're working on a local history book or a similar project or putting other stuff on the web, it's totally okay to use the content prior to 1925. But something I want to make you aware of is that after 1925, all the content that's on the site is still in copyright. We're only able to use it because the newspapers gave us permission. So you're going to want to reach out to the paper that published that article and ask them. And honestly, most of our papers are really friendly and nice and will probably give that permission, especially the Kaiser paper. So they've done that in the past. There was recently a book on the Trinity Lutheran Church that they gave permission for reprinting sections. Okay, so if you click next. Now what's nice about this is if you click next, it'll save a document that has all the notes that you put into this. So if in case you wanted to put your notes on the article right here, and you click download, it would actually, sorry, did that too soon. You can also add tags, which can be searched. And so if you click next, and now if you hit download on this page, it would actually bring it down with, what page this was found on, what title of the article it was, what date it was, and any notes you might have typed in. So it's very handy. Something I do always point out to people is that you can also share a link back to this article on Facebook, and it should include your notes and everything else with it. So that's handy when you're doing research in here and you want to share it out to other groups. It makes it so it's kind of a one-click place rather than you having to like screen grab and redrop and make a new Facebook post. Okay. So it's there if you want to take advantage of it. For those of you whose eyesight's not as great, that's me many days, you can actually zoom in on the pages right here. You can also use the drop down to make it larger as well. Goes up to about 400%. All right. And sometimes this helps on older papers. I wanted to point out you can change the tint to grayscale from color. So sometimes that can help pop an image a little bit better. And finally, the last thing I want to show you is something that they added in December, which is the ability to adjust brightness and contrast on the page. So when you click this little dropout right here, you can actually slide your brightness up and down and slide your contrast as well. Text size, I've not found to be handy. You can see it just basically zooms the article in and out. So it's the same thing as the zoom. So that can be handy when you've got an image or something. You might get a better quality image out of it. Okay. Okay, so if I click back to the search results, this is where we get the advantage now. So I brought up that sometimes you have to apply some tricky tactics to when you're searching for stuff. And one of the things that I mentioned was how, hey, because of it being hyphenated, it doesn't get picked up. When this text reader right there actually like reads through these articles, it just reads through in a straight line. So as far as it's concerned, this sentence right here, I might need to blow that up a little bit so you guys can see that a little bit better. As far as it's concerned, this sentence reads, at 8 o'clock this morning, the first 26 miles southeast of Kaiser and then it would just keep going. So you want to be careful, and that's where you want to start applying what I call hyphenated searching. And that can be, or sorry, truncated searching. So you might, in this case, do something like type MON. So, and I use this primarily if I'm not getting results from my search query. So I'll change it up and try different strategies. And you might even do things like, look for twin mount Poto or something like that and see what pops up. And that's very handy when you're searching for names. So if I hit that, in this case, now it does try to pull things by relevance. So it actually found, but here's a great example right here. This result that came up would have possibly gotten missed on the other search because it's an older paper. You can see there's some areas where it's blurry and too dark over here. And it would have potentially, that other search that we just did, it might have missed that article. Now I'm not going to dig through to try to find the article in here right now, but that's one thing that can make your life a lot easier. Now, one thing I want to also have you think about is this also applies for people's names. So my name is Nicholas Gardner, but often the newspaper reporter puts in, what someone told them, or if you have something like an arrest record, or if you're looking for information like that, they may put someone's formal name in. So you need to apply some different strategies for looking for someone's name. So I go by Nick. So a reporter may, I may have told someone I'm Nick Gardner, or they may have gotten my name for someone else and put Nicholas Gardner. So if you do a search for Nick Gardner like that, it increases the likelihood of finding what you're looking for. All right. So in this case, I know these articles aren't. Oh, well, that's because. So that's one thing you do need to watch. When you type in here, it will not reset that date filter. So since I wasn't alive in 1900 through 1920, there are no articles about me in here. I'm going to bump the decade to when I was around. Now, I don't know that I'm actually in here. So I'll change it to 86, 1920, hit apply, hit refine search. Okay. So I didn't turn anything up on myself, but one thing that's nice is you can see, for example, right here, Warnick comes up because I looked for NIC. This is a person right here who went by Jolly Nick. You can see it came up in technicians. You can see someone whose name was Nick Taylor, came up in clinic. So it can be handy because you can turn up these other instances of it. Now that's one way to do it, but you can also do things like other partial searches where you look for NICH to try to turn up Nicholas, or you can also then just switch it and turn it to Nick Gardner. So you need to kind of think like a detective and try different strategies with this to turn up what you're looking for. And often what I do is I don't limit my search to just someone's name. I'll add another word that's relevant to them. So in all likelihood, if there's something in the paper about me, it's related to the college. So I might do Nick Gardner, Potomac. And I also would probably, in this case, constrain that date to be a little bit closer. Take it up to 1910. I start in 2014. Again, you can see when I change the date right here, it affects the date range right here. So you're going to need to adjust that again. Hit apply, hit refine search. So you wonder if I'm just not in the paper. Well, I know who is in the paper. Look for our director. So here we go. That came up. So I just want to show you can't actually find an article in here.
That was nice of you.
Yep. One thing that's nice is the older. Now, the one thing that is a little bit sad is the scan of these really emphasize to try to get the best result for text. Images don't always reproduce perfectly. If you find yourself where you really need an image and it's in the Mineral County paper, let us know, and we'll go to the microfilm and try to pull it out for you, as long as we'll do any reasonable request. So, but we only have the Mineral County papers at our library. All right. Okay, so anyone who's actually been on the site, do you have any questions I can answer for you while we're here? Jenny, is there anything you think I've left off that was important?
I don't think so. I mean, I think you explained it pretty well, but listen, you guys, everybody on this call, Nick is really knowledgeable about this stuff. So throw any questions out at all, unmute yourself, type in the chat, whatever you want to do, because now's the time to really glean any information from him.
Oh, one thing I wanted to emphasize, when you go back to our research guide, we also have, one sec, the bar hides for Zoom hides what I'm looking for. There we go. I just wanted to make sure you knew our contact information is there too. So like, seriously, give us a call, email us at, the library email address, or even shoot us a message on Facebook. We do field a number of questions about this site at least once a week. We're happy to answer it. Most of the time people's questions are, answered like 5-minute answer things. So if you're struggling with something, just ask us.
Yeah, don't be frustrated. We'll get on the exact same screen with you and work through it. And if I'm too stupid, I'll say, I'm going to get Nick, and he can get on the exact same screen as you and work through it.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
When you download, and I haven't looked at this, I just want to make sure you can do this. Can you, download it to like a flash drive or a CD or something, or just to the computer?
It opts to download to a computer, but you could pick while you're downloading it to go to the flash drive. If your browser is one where it goes straight down, just open your downloads folder and you can drag it over your flash drive from there. And you could drag it to a CD or something like that too. So.
Nick, I have several questions for you.
Great.
First of all, thank you so much for this. I've been using it over the last couple of weeks, and it's by far the best newspaper site that I've ever used. So,
oh wow,
thank you. It's really great. So one question is, the papers that you have on here, they're only ones from microfiche, or are you also scanning actual newspapers?
It's always scanned from microfilm. We are shipping the only current paper that we still get digitized, or sorry, that's the wrong word. The only paper that we send away for microfilming that we work from paper is the Mineral Daily News Tribune. We ship it out about every 6 months to be preserved.
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, the reason for that, a lot of it's cost. And honestly, with the exception of, there was one case I saw for the Piedmont Herald where people were, where they were able to get some better copies out. The usually older papers, even if they've been kept in a really nice setting, they're very brittle. They're not usually in the best shape. Actually, Christy, who's on this call, works at the Regional History Center and can attest to, like, older papers tend to not hold up. So, and they don't always produce the best scan.
Are you, I happen to be in possession of some old newspapers from Pendleton County.
Mm-hmm.
Are you taking donations of papers and things to digitize?
That's a question I probably would answer. Have you email me and we'd work out from there.
Okay.
We're really trying. Usually, what we do is if we did scan anything like that, we would want to borrow it. But I find our vendor is out of Iowa, and I find people don't usually want to lend something to be shipped out there. So they're the ones who do the scanning and conversion.
Yeah. Okay. I'll communicate with you separately on that.
One of the things, oh, sorry.
And another question, like for I know that's great that you have the other websites that have the West Virginia newspapers. But one, for example, like you have the Grant County Press up to 1940, and then that small town newspaper has some that are later on. Will you work to combine those, or are you just going to keep them separate on two different websites?
So I'm not sure who initiated the digitization on Small Town Press for the Grant County Press. That's a question that we would ultimately take to the Grant County Press publishers. We only have permission to go so far forward with them. They're a little bit lower down than the Hampshire Review or the Moorfield Examiner. Different papers gave us different time cutoffs. Some said 2000, some said 1990, some said keep going as long as we've got issues. You have blanket permission to keep going. So it's paper by paper.
Okay.
As far as their collection, what we would likely do is we would be scanning from the microfilm. We wouldn't be using their scan.
Gotcha. And obviously you're going to be updating this as you go along. How will we know if you've updated something? Will there be something on there saying new information or?
On the research guide, yes. I plan on basically on the front page, like highlighting, it'll be like, have yellow or be and something like that. Anytime we do like a major dump up of new content, we would have sent something out to the paper. This current, like for example, when we just did this 1925 through 1940s of the 3 local papers and the West Virginia Advocate, we would have put out some kind of a notice about that. But frankly, those actually just became available in the past 2 weeks completely. And this current coronavirus situation has kind of thrown a monkey wrench in our normal process.
Yeah.
But we do try to communicate these updates on Facebook, and it'll be more transparent on the website in the future.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yep. Yeah, and like Jenny says, just keep checking the site, because usually that's how people find out that we're sometimes, quite often, when there is a new project going up, the titles may appear before the page content is loaded. So, for example, it was about 3 weeks that the vendor we worked with, the Hampshire Review, was already showing up, but the pages weren't loaded in. So it said how many pages there should be, like right on the front page, right here. But when you clicked on it, you couldn't actually access anything. So it's like, I feel like I'm being very teased right now. So, okay. Does anyone have any other questions?
Yeah, Nick, this is Terry. I'm married to Virginia, but I'm a history guy, and I love the site. So I've done a lot of research on it myself. And Nick won't tell you this, and Virginia won't either. But I and that is that they do have budgetary constraints, and the university, the college gives them some money, and then they get donations from the public also. So with this coronavirus, all the colleges and universities are really going to have to tighten their belts. So unfortunately, we're going to be looking at some maybe pullback on projects such as this. But I'm not going to ask anybody for money because I really have nothing to do with it. But that is a problem, and the college. Potomac State has had some really passionate people that have made them some nice donations that have kept this project moving forward. And I love it myself. I mean, I bought a building recently, and when I was trying to find out the history of it, and so I put the address in of the building. And the first article I came up with was 1911, when the Farmers and Merchants Bank of Kaiser opened in that building. Nobody seemed to know that in town, but I found that out through the newspaper project, and I kept it up, and I think I've learned almost every business that ever occupied that building. It was really
well. Are you going to give us some money for our project? Nick, I just found you another donor.
She probably did.
I totally forgot something I was gonna like. Oh yeah, Terry brought up a great case of how historical newspapers can be used. The thing to think about when you're doing, I feel like I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but historical newspapers used to be the community record, newspapers used to be the community record, and to some extent they still are. Unfortunately, now you guys know a lot of our local papers, don't always have the most news in them. But the point is, you could go back and see things like what so-and-so was doing on such an evening, the community blotters and things like that. And one thing I jumped on maybe last semester, and in literally an hour, I had built a history of everyone who ever taught geology at Potomac State College. I mean, there's so much information there. It's harder to know what isn't there as opposed to I phrased that wrong, but there's so much that really the only way to know is you got to dive in and you got to start digging. One thing I do try to point out to people, the Piedmont Herald gives a great information on the Mineral County area and also on the Tri-Towns. I know there's some people tuning into this from Cumberland, so it does give a little bit more Cumberland information in it than say the Mineral County paper does. And it's a little bit, and then the Hampshire Review is a much older paper too. So those are nicer if you're trying to get more history of this area stretching back, because the Kaiser paper didn't really get kicked off till about 1911, at least for the years that we have microfilm for. We know that there were years earlier than that. To answer a quick question from the chat, we are willing to do specific presentations for community schools. We are exploring that in the fall, but as you guys know, everything's fluid right now. I have a cousin who teaches middle school for Mineral County, and we had talked about it, but so we're trying to be very flexible.
Understood.
So we're more likely to, sorry, rephrase that. We're more likely to say yes than we are to say no to anything. Okay. Do we have any other questions?
Briefly, the next session, some of us are slow learners, but it's this Saturday.
The next session on Saturday is the exact same stuff that was covered today. So if you feel like you didn't catch stuff from this, you can actually pop back on and tune in on Saturday. But if you want to, or if you've had time between now and Saturday to get on the site and get like more questions to get some more questions put together, just bring them Saturday.
Thank you.
And keep your eyes peeled for news from, if you're following stuff for Cumberland, keep your eyes peeled on the Oakland Public Library. They should be releasing soon the information on the Oakland Republican. So if you're someone who studies Garrett County, they're going to have stuff up on archive.org. So they should be announcing that sometime this year. So that's a totally different, it's not West Virginia, it's Maryland. But all right, well, thank you, everyone. Just so you know, just to go back real fast, when you go onto our here, just wanted to point out real quick, there are video tutorials right up here. When you click on this, navigating the site, it goes over everything. They are a little long. I will be putting a recording of the part of the session where I went over how to use the site up, and it'll be linked here under webinars and workshops. So you'll have another opportunity to come back and look to see what was gone over. And again, if you feel like you have more questions or you want to get just to see the same stuff again, feel free to come Saturday. No problem with that.
That's great.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Nick, thanks very much.
Yep. All right.